turn up. We show up and then turn up. Yeah.
What's up, guys? I'm Landon from Shoeware, and today we're putting the newest models from Trae and James Harden shoe lines head to head to see how they compare. So really quick, if this is your first time checking this out, feel free to drop a follow or subscribe wherever you're watching and give this video a like, and we would greatly appreciate that. But now we'll go ahead and do a quick rundown of the box and the price. So starting off with the Trae ones, they do come in a white box with some written text on there saying, "Always remember when they doubted you." And then of course it has Trae signature underneath. So that's just kind of a mindset he kind of carries with him, since a lot of NBA scouts and analysts, had questions whether or not he was too small to even make it in the NBA. And then the Harden box kind of comes in the Harden shoes come in a black box with some multicolored splotches that kind of cover it. And then those blobs that, if you want to call it, those like little splotches on the shoes, those kind of show up on a bunch of different colorways, just not the colorway that we are looking at today. But as for pricing, we are going to be in the same price range, with the Hardens retailing for $130 and the Trae going for $10 higher at $140. But that pretty much covers the box and the price for these, so let's move on. All right, so before I break down the performance comparison, I do just kind of want to briefly hit on the appearance for each of these shoes first. So starting off with the colorways, we're looking at the Adidas Trae 1 Ice Trae versus the Harden Volume 5 Polka Dot Team Navy. So looking at the Harden 5s, they do have an entirely different look and kind of setup from last year's model, and honestly, it isn't really my favorite. I think that kind of the midsole looks a little bit bulky on these, and then it has the same type of look from the front to the back compared to, a more unique setup with like some loops on the side of that midsole for the Trae and they got some different touches on the upper. So it just seems a little bit more creative on the Adidas Trae in my opinion. But Harden's player logo does show up kind of connected to the tongue on his shoe. Then you can find the same type of setup on the Trae with his logo a little bit above the tongue. And then of course you have that little patch that kind of runs across the laces. And there are only 2 laces on the Trae compared to the more simple look with the and-like lacing setup to the Harden Volume 5. So I think the more intriguing elements from the Harden Volume 4 didn't really make it onto this 5 look. So it just isn't quite as eye-catching compared to like Trae first signature shoe with Adidas. I mean, it looked really good, but now let's go ahead and look at how each of these shoes perform on the court. All right, so now breaking down more of the performance and the materials comparison, I'll start off with the cushioning for both shoes. So the Hardens kind of flip what they had previously been working with from the Volume 4 model, and they went with what they call a future natural setup for these shoes. So basically this process is just where instead of having the upper and the bottom glued together, they use extremely high pressure and temperature to kind of build that into one solid piece. So I guess I kind of did that trying to create something that's as close to the human foot as possible. They even did some research and took out different studies on it. But, I think they did miss the mark a little bit if, a super comfortable shoe was the goal. But these do have a boost midsole kind of compared to the Light Strike from last year's model. But it really isn't as soft as you would maybe expect. But the Trae have the traditional Light Strike midsole that most Adidas shoe lines work with, but they did even add some additional boost cushioning to the back half of that shoe. It's like sort of a hockey puck setup that does give you a softer feel, but it is also pretty responsive as well. And then moving on to the upper, the materials on the Harden Volume 5, they are pretty much just kind of a plastic feel from the front to the back, just across that entire upper. And it really isn't all that special for a signature shoe line. But the Trae while they do have some cheap textiles on the upper as well, you see some premium touches like some suede like material going on the toe above the midsole, and then a little bit on the back kind of near the heel. So I actually did think that was a really nice touch. But with there only being 2 eyelets, the lateral containment isn't maybe quite as high as it probably could be. That is potentially one of the better areas for the Harden Volume 5, but keep in mind that's mostly thanks to there not being much give to that upper, which can be good for support, but also is kind of part of the reason these aren't that impressive for the comfort. But both shoes do have are a durable option with the rubber outsole. The Hardens maybe are equipped a little bit better to stand outdoors, but really not by much. And then jumping to the bottom of these to check out the traction, this is the weakest point on the Harden Volume 5s. Last year's model was decoupled, and it did just kind of have an all-around better setup to give you good coverage. But this year's shoe just had me slipping all over the place. But then you switch over to the Trae and the traction design is actually one of the highlights to this shoe line, even though it just got started. So you have the herringbone design kind of in the front half of that shoe, similar to what all sorts of brands feature in their shoes right now, because that herringbone pattern is near the top of the back. And then for the back half of the shoe, you're going to get more of a radial setup, which it's just another super nice design for coverage. So I actually really did like that part of Trae's first signature shoe with Adidas. And then to finish up with sizing, the Trae Youngs do fit true to size, but one thing to keep in mind is that you do have that tongue kind of built directly into the upper, so it isn't maybe the easiest shoe to get on, but it's really not that bad to work with. And then once you get your shoe in there, it should kind of fit true to your normal size. But for the Harden Volume 5 shoes, there's really no other way to put this. These shoes are like straight up massive. Like I went a half size down and I still had way more than enough room. So this is one of those shoe lines, if you like a snug fit, you may want to even consider going a full size down to kind of combat that extra space. So for the final ratings, I wasn't really impressed with the change of the design for the Harden Volume 4s to the Volume 5s. While on the other hand, I do think Adidas did an excellent job kind of creating the first look for the Trae Young ones. And then for cushioning, although both do feature some boost cushioning, these were not created equal because the Trae Young ones have a much better feel for comfort. And then looking at the materials used, they did definitely put more quality materials into the Trae shoe, just comparing those to the kind of cheaper plastic, pretty much covering the entire upper on these Hardens. But I will say that the support is maybe a little bit better on the Hardens due to kind of like the Achilles pillows that kind of run along the inside of the shoe, which is a slight benefit. And then also these having that full lacing setup kind of with that limited give to the upper all kind of combines to that reasoning. But I will lean that way for the Hardens, but just by a super slim margin. But without a doubt, it is going to be back to the Trae Youngs for the traction. The Harden 5s, took a significant step back in that area, which kind of brings this decision easily to siding with the new Trae Young 1 Ice Trae for this competition. But many people were kind of disappointed with how the Harden Volume 5s turned out. Kind of especially with the price and then also them being part of a signature shoe line. And I sadly kind of have to agree with that. It isn't all bad, but pretty much none of it is all that great. But you can see some like multiple points on Trae's shoes to get excited about. And then just in case you do want a little bit more of an in-depth review on each one of these shoes, we do have individual reviews live for both pairs where I go a little bit deeper into these models, so feel free to check that out. But that pretty much wraps up our performance comparison for the Trae Young 1 versus the Adidas Harden Volume 5. Thank you guys for taking some time to watch. If you are interested in purchasing either of these shoes, just go ahead and check out the links in the description below. And then last, go ahead and just feel free to leave a comment if you like this video, or just kind of let us know any of the shoes that you may want us to check out. But until next review, I'm Landon from Shoeware. Peace.